You know, in my humble opinion, Willow episode 3 beats out House of the Dragon in one specific way. Stay tuned to find out how.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, everybody, if it's your first time joining, welcome. We're two dads who love all things fandom, from Star Wars to Star Trek, Marvel to DC, and Middle-earth on down to Westeros. We love it all, and we want to bring all of our insights and love of all things nerdy to you, our viewers. So if that's your cup of tea, then we're here for you, and you should definitely subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on all of our amazing reviews and insights that we bring to all of our favorite fandoms. So thanks for tuning in, guys. My name is Chris Matthews, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host with the most, Mr. Matt Parham. How you doing today, buddy?
Doing all right. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Let's get into Willow Chapter 3, The Battle of the Slaughtered Lamb. Written by Wendy Merisel and John Bickerstaff, and directed by Debs Patterson. The first thing, Matt, I gotta bring this up first. How about that full-on jean ensemble from the lady in the cabin?
It's like, if this isn't any more clear.
I know, right? I was like, oh, Matt's gonna love this character after the last episode. So.
Yeah. I thought, well, that's pretty fun. They're really leaning into the denim wear here.
Really are, like full-on denim.
Yeah.
Jacket, pants, the whole nine. You
I'm glad
was the hat even made of denim?
But, I mean, it just seemed like we're in another era all of a sudden. But
it really does.
Before we get too far into that, did you look up Rotten Tomatoes score or any of that?
I really tried to look up the Rotten Tomatoes score, guys, here, but right now, no critic consensus. There's like one critic rating on Willow right now.
To give us just something to kind of gauge how this episode was to some kind of online public rating forum, IMDB had the first episode of Willow rated at a 6.5 star, second episode at a 6.6, and third as a 6.8. So these are all out of 10 based on the public's reviews. And so far, we've got about 212 people rating it to get that 6.8 for this episode. So take that for what it's worth. But I don't know. What did you think, Chris? We started on the denim talk, but
exactly.
Overall?
For me, I remember when we watched House of the Dragon, there was a few episodes there and in Game of Thrones where, you know, I didn't have a problem with the lighting or anything like that. And, you know, it might have been a little darker for most. But honestly, for this chapter 3 of Willow, I was sitting there on my break watching this on my phone, and I could not make heads or tails of what was going on. It was so dark by the end of this episode. I was like, what's going on? And so for me, it's got House of the Dragon beat for that one episode for the lighting of this episode.
Yeah. You know, I would, if I were you, I would try and take a look at some of those scenes on a bigger screen, because it could have something to do with watching on the phone.
I did. I watched it tonight with the kids. So
yeah. How did it appear on the big screen then?
Still dark.
Yeah. So for us, watched it on the same TV as Game of Thrones. And Game of Thrones was much more imperceptible to me, but I still did not like that Willow based a ton of the action and stuff in an ill-lit area. And I can see, at least for Willow, you know, it's in the midst of a battle. So it's not necessarily like somebody's going to be like, whoa, wait a second, let's get a torch in here. We can't really see what we're doing, you know. But I do think story-wise, House of the Dragon could have had somebody at the beach holding up a torch, you know, walking up to the dragon. I myself, if I was approaching a massive Godzilla-sized dragon, would have some means of seeing it before walking too close. But that's just my own thing. And I think that if I was in the realm of Willow here, that aside from the dark, I don't know, I would feel maybe slightly out of my element going to battle with any of those knights, and me just being kind of a untrained kid.
Yeah, especially those knights that are basically zombies at this point that can't die.
Apparently,
You know,
one
they get
strike
stabbed, they get
from
striked
Willow.
in the back. Yeah, yeah. Okay, let's go into that. Okay, Willow for this entire episode is just like, I'm standing on the sidelines.
Standing
Let's just standing
That's it.
there while the conflict is going on. He's like, I'm gonna make this potion. And again, with the editing of this whole show, it was kind of off again. And when he threw that like potion of stuff, then it was just like, okay, I thought that, you know, they were gonna save Elora at that point, but then all of a sudden just cut. I was unsure of what happened. It didn't really show it. I watched it twice now, and I'm not sure what exactly happened, but you get Prince Graydon that just narrates and says, "Oh no, they took her," and you know, you see him there, and it's like, I saved her, and now they took her. I'm just like, oh, okay, that's what happened. I was like, oh, I thought that, you know, Willow throwing that potion was gonna help them escape with Elora, but that is not the case. I don't know about you, man, but they just kept ragging on Prince Graydon the whole time, like, and this kid is like bringing up useful information and everything. He's like, oh yeah, you know, they have this spell on them and whatnot, and you know, it's like an infection, and they're still in there, but the longer that they have it, the worse it's going to get. And then Willow's just like, hey, who's the High Alden here? Is it you? No, it's not. Sit down and shut up. You know? And then later on, when they're on their way to go find Elora as well, it's like, I felt so bad for Prince Graydon and Tony Rivolori in this. Man. So like when they were on the path going to Elora, trying to catch up with Elora and save her, he was also talking about how his dad like thinks that he is useless and everything and terrible for the realm. And then, you know, Willow has to come at him instead of being like, oh, I'm sorry, you know, that really sucks or something, or I feel for you. He's like, yeah, he didn't start you off with a good name to begin with, and just was ragging on his name as well. I'm like, what the hell? It's like Willow's being a huge jerk throughout this thing, even to his best friend. And this is what I don't get. It's like, he's like, I'm going to save my magic until a time then that I'm really going to need it, but I'm not going to use it before my best friend gets thrown across, you know,
that's enough.
Little cavern and dies. Okay, he's dead, so now I'm gonna use it. Like, you could have used that like 5 minutes ago and saved your best friend.
Well,
basically seems to die for nothing. You know,
we were talking about it, like, you know, because the kids were saying the same stuff during the show.
Yeah,
and we kept telling them, we can't hear, you know, because they interject a lot of lore just kind of out of the blue.
Oh, yeah.
And it's disorienting. You just sort of like, okay, what are they talking about now? So we were trying to tell him, like, look, there's obvious that he must need to recharge his magic. There's something that's making him hesitate to do anything for some reason. So I really think that they're holding something back. He's got this look on his face like, I wish I could help, but I can't. So I think there'll be something that comes up that is like, you know, look, maybe I'm not the High Alden, or, you know, I'm not quite a sorcerer yet, or something like Willow's, you know, not at full power for whatever reason. Or maybe it's just that they're getting closer and closer to Knockmore. You know, they get at the end there a little glimpse of what that is. And by getting closer to that, you know, maybe it weakens him. Or I also think that it's a confidence issue. He keeps having these dreams and knowing that they're all going to their doom, So he doesn't really want to necessarily help much in
Mm-hmm.
aiding that.
Yeah.
So this is just my theories.
Yeah, and he mentioned to his friend there when like they were taking a break from actually pulling the cart out of the mud, they just stop and just walk away and sit down. Like, what? It's like, I remember when we were young and we could work all day and then dance all night. Let's go sit down real quick. Like, oh, we're too old for this shit.
The editing is
I
just
know. So fantastic.
cringeworthy.
All while like the youngsters are in the back just like pulling and giving their all to try to, Jade was sitting there and he's like, isn't our sorcerer gonna help us at all with any of this stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, see, stuff like that, I think they made clear implications that there's something that's stopping really Willow from being much of an assistant to anybody.
Right, yeah. And so my whole point in talking about this is like he sits down and he talks to his best friend. And I forget what the best friend's name is, but he's sitting there and he's like, that I have to pay a price for using my magic or something like that. Like there's some sort of toll that he was talking about that the magic has on him. And yeah, like you said, it seems like it's like a battery or something that you used up and you're done with it. I don't know. Again, they haven't really explained the rules or the world as much as they should when it comes to magic and the place that they're in. When Borman was talking in the beginning about the story from 10,000 years ago in 3 weeks, it's like, oh, okay, there was this place that had a king. And he died, and his eldest son was weak, and he had another son that was stronger that wanted to take over. So they made the Curus that was, invincible or whatnot, and they had that little device that they stuck into it. And it's like, oh, cool. And then they cut off the story. They keep doing that, like whenever they're trying to explain stuff in the show.
Yeah.
And it's like, and you get a little bit more information about like the bad guys or the antagonists, and you're like the Gales. I was like, oh, the Gales, those were the bad guys. Okay, cool. The Crone, and they're like, and Borman's like, they're all the same thing. And then he gets a cut off again. It's like,
and now the Eternal One, which I assume is the Crone as well. Yeah.
So really, like, and so we as an audience are trying to piece this together. And I mean, like, it's good that we get to kind of theorize about this too. So if the Crone's like an Eternal One on the dark side, it seems like there's the light side and the dark side, because Willow also mentioned in this, if they killed Elora Danem, that her soul would go to another person. So she's kind of like the eternal light, and you got the eternal darkness, the eternal light. So maybe those are the two motifs that they're trying to play with here. But they do I'm sorry, they're doing a terrible job at trying to explain this and put us into this world and to ground us.
Yeah, they really are. And so I looked into this a little bit further because
good.
I was just like, there's got to be something else. They just keep throwing these lines out there as if there's this stuff, and it happened in Lord of the Rings too, where they just kind of throw in these terms that the audience that's viewing the material for the first time ever, no books, nothing behind their knowledge of what they're seeing, might be disoriented to some effect, because a lot of elvish words, a lot of ancient history, and there's just not a ton of reference. I think Lord of the Rings, the movies, work much, much better in establishing a lore right off the bat. Each one of them kind of begins with a little history lesson.
Yeah, like a little prologue. Yep.
Yeah, and this is not doing that. The Willow movie did that a little bit, but just for what pertained to that story.
Yeah.
So anyway, after the movie comes out, lo and behold, George Lucas gets an idea to write a book. In fact, not just a book, but a trilogy of books. Him and comic book writer Chris Claremont wrote out an outline and scripted out this thing for a book trilogy called The Chronicles of the Shadow War. and it includes what happens to Willow and Laura Dannon 10 years after the events of the movie. So we do get reference points for a lot of this stuff, including
thank God.
Yeah. Including stuff that happened before the movie, some history and what Knockmore is, and a lot of these other things that we're seeing in this series that really we, as an audience, we have no reference for this stuff at all. So if you are interested out there, I have not read them because I'm just now learning that they even existed. Check out Chronicles of the Shadow War. It's 3 books, started with Shadow Moon, then Shadow Dawn, and then Shadow Star. So if you're feeling lost like us, check out those books, and it gives you lots more information that may ground some of this for you. But in the meantime, as you were saying, the editing continues to add to the confusion just in the action that's going on. The explosion was one thing. For me and the kids, my wife, were watching Borman and I forget the name of the other girl in the cave, right? And they're talking about the
Kit, Princess Kit,
Princess Kit, yes,
Borman and Kit,
the werebat,
Kit and Caboodle,
the were-rat that they saw there.
Yes,
it's kind of sitting up above that well thing that he had gone down. So when that thing comes down, and I guess it sort of flew at her or something, but if you look at that quick scene, it's really hard to tell what happened. And then, it looks like she's got her knife in the head of this thing. So it's stuff like that the action just really isn't edited very well, that you're just kind of disoriented as to, okay, who is where, who's fighting who,
right?
And what just happened.
Even my daughter brought up a good point. Like when they were going in there into that tomb, they go in and all of a sudden they have lighted torches, and she's like, where did they get the torches? I'm like, oh, well, maybe they were in the entrance of the tomb. Like, well, how did they light them? I'm like, that's a great question. And with Borman going down into the well thing as well, I'm like, that takes some time and like to pull somebody up like that. And Princess Kit probably would have a hard time getting Borman up there. But you know, when she sees those were-rats and whatnot, and they're piling up, it just is a quick edit, and Borman's up there, like with her, and it's like, oh wait, how did? Okay, and again, like and spatially, it's really hard to keep track too, because I kind of felt like they were far away from the other group, but apparently they all converge at the end for this major fight, and they're all in the same location. I was like, oh, wait a second. They're all there. And all of a sudden Kit and Borman join in. They just stumble into the fight. So I'm like, okay, they're all there.
Yeah. And at one point Princess Kit comes into the action, and I was like, wait, was she just like buried in that pile of rocks there or something?
Right.
Where did she just pop out of?
That's what I was like. So they must have like gone down a tunnel or something in that whole tomb and then blasted out at the right spot where everybody else was. So just it was a beat of story convenience, basically.
There's a lot of that going on. And
there is. But I got to give it up for Ralph Ineson in this. He was Commander Ballantyne. He was the lead zombie guy. And, because that's basically what they were. But at the end there, with those moments with Jade, like you can tell throughout this episode, that character was struggling because he very much cared for this character. He's like, don't make me kill you. And I love that first little scene where Jade comes up on him with Alora. And I was like, good job. I'm loving Jade. She's one of my favorite characters so far. Like she seems to be making all the right moves. Erin Kellerman once again.
Yeah.
And that dynamic was really cool.
I have read some reviews of people casting a little shade at Jade and saying, why? What's that?
Don't you dare throw shade at Jade.
Right.
I'm going to defend her. She's an awesome
But they were
character.
saying, why did she need to kill him at the end? And to me, that was the most clear part of the
Yeah,
episode.
that was. I agree. And that had so much emotional weight to it because this is somebody she's known for years. And as Valentine mentioned, he's like, I've helped raise you. I've been there for you. I've watched you grow and helped
Yeah.
train you as well. So, I got a lightsaber. Oh, dark saber coming up in the background here.
Yeah, my kids
Once again.
were upset
Mhm.
that he had to die. They were upset.
Just
about
like
it.
I'm going to die here in a second.
Yeah. Well, and my son says, why do people have to die in these things all the time? And my oldest daughter says,
Mhm.
well, they'd never be interesting if nobody died.
She's got a
So,
point. Smart
yeah.
kiddo right there. But it's true, and this is to set up the idea because we find out by the end of this episode that Prince Graydon gets a wound and he's now infected. So, with the stakes are now up there. He does. So he
No,
yeah.
I know that, but did you know, like, why was that thing glowing? And I don't remember anybody else's wounds, like the knights or them.
I'd have to go back to the first episode with the Gales, the one that hit Valentine, but I think it was kind of glowing when he was cursing him and whatnot.
Okay.
So maybe that's just how it works. I don't. Again, rules aren't very clear here, but we know that we get the gist that he's infected, and so we know we've seen what happens to characters that go through this. And it's like, oh no, he's going to die, and Willow's certainly not going to help him because he's such a jerk. He doesn't even he's like, oh well, look where we're at, guys. And then a Metallica song hits, and that's the end of the episode.
I know they keep doing that too. 80s song to close out every episode.
Off to Never Land. It's like what? I was like, yeah.
It's coming out of nowhere for one, but it also, to me, is a little pandering because it's obvious this is a nostalgic show. It's built for the fan base and whatnot, and this is just like, we know you all remember these songs too, so here you go, cut to credits.
Yeah, and I can, like, the first couple of songs, it's like I can forgive that kind of stuff. Like, not forgive, I guess, but I think it was a good choice. But like something like Metallica is in our zeitgeist in the culture. It's like it just threw me off. It's like it took me out of the story completely. I'm like,
yeah. Well, and we've just had two pretty emotional death scenes.
I know, yeah, and it's like. Yeah, so I love how they're opening the show into the book and everything. It's very well done. It shows you the chapter title and everything. But yeah, the endings of these is just like,
Yeah.
It just cuts you off there. And, it's trying to build tension too and be like, oh, set you up for the next episode. And it's been leaving us on cliffhangers. And, this is the third episode. I think there's 8 episodes altogether. So we have 5 more to go. Do you see this wrapping up in the next 5 episodes?
Oh yeah, I mean, all they have to do is wander around at this point. So
Willow's just gonna let everybody die, and all right, that's it. Maybe that's what happened with his family. He was just like, okay, I gotta save my magic, guys. Sorry, I'm gonna go sit on this hill.
I don't see. I mean, there's a couple of plot threads out there, but we'll see how far it goes. I hope they get there to really wherever they're going, the immemorable city, and get to that place and then do more after that. Because I feel like we're just kind of retreading the movie a little bit. And I think we don't just have to follow that formula. We've got some interesting characters here, and I'd like to see what happens to him, make him work for a solution a little bit. So yeah, 8 episodes seems good to me. I also think that in this episode, for my own taste, they nailed the humor a little bit more.
Hmm.
I did like some of the tongue-in-cheek stuff that they did with, their references to, like Borman saying this occurred 10,000 years ago. I
I love
literally
Borman.
did
Yeah.
roll my eyes, but it was a beat too soon because he adds on and 3 weeks or
And
so.
3 weeks. I love
Because
that.
I'm like, man, all of these fantasy stories do that. Like, oh, we're just gonna say thousands of years
Yeah.
because we
Yep.
can,
Hmm.
and it's a little cringe-worthy cliche now. But adding that kind of humor to it made me laugh during the
Yeah.
scene on
What
the purpose I'm assuming the writers meant to.
and
So
what about when Kit was like, skip to the point when we get to my den, and Borman was like,
yeah, I
you
love
kids
that. It's just like
nowadays.
cut off,
Hmm.
total millennial thing to do for one, but
Absolutely, just totally ragging on millennials here.
yeah,
And
yeah, but no, I thought it made perfect sense. Like, okay, she's
mhm,
not going to have patience for that. What is he even talking about?
right.
You know.
This is why I
So
love Borman so much. And he had another little comment later on when the wheel came off the wagon and everything. He's like, "Wow, it's so great that we have a sorcerer here." When Willow was just like, "Nope."
yeah,
It's like, "Can you levitate this on over there?"
yeah.
It's like it's really coming in handy having a
Well,
sorcerer.
and I really would like for them to give him some better choreography because every fight he's been in, it's just kind of a slap at the
Yeah,
blades, and
yeah,
he's got probably the
the
coolest looking
coolest
one.
weapon. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I just
and
the sound and the weight of that thing is awesome too. I just like, man,
yeah. Well,
that's
and
really
I
cool.
was confused because at times they show the knights almost having like this super strength, splitting the trunk of that tree open,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, man, they're able to defend these guys with little daggers and
I
big
know.
old swords, and just what's going on here? So
And did Willow like tell his friend to go shank somebody? I think he said go
shiv
shank
him, yeah.
shiv. Oh, that's it. Yeah. Just go over there and shiv him. It's like, Willow, just use your magic on him. It could have been all
I
over.
know.
You could have saved your friend. Instead of saving your friend, you're like, hey, best buddy, I know you're an Alwyn like me, and we're very small, and these guys are
Yeah.
huge and zombies, and they don't die. But go over there and shiv him, and go fight. I'll stand back here and watch.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It was another cringy episode for me. So
yeah. All right. Do we want to go into our ratings for this
let's get
episode?
into those ratings.
Perfect. So, what would you give this one, brother?
Well, like I said, the humor landed a little bit for me, a little bit more for me, but not enough to save it much. It's still confusing editing, confusing
Yeah.
lore, and some characterization that's just not making much sense yet. So, 6 out of 10 for me.
Okay. 6 out of 10 for Matt.
How about you?
Yeah, I agree that the editing was a little choppy again, and I feel like this is what we're gonna get all season with that. Again, had a problem with the lighting. I would have liked to seen a little bit
Yeah,
more clear picture, especially with the action scenes. Like that's what the bread and butter of this series is all about. Should be the action scenes, and watching the original Willow, there's a lot of color, a lot of brightness to it.
yeah,
For the most part, there were some dark scenes, but not as many as in this episode. So just that kind of stuff, just some of the plotting that just didn't make sense to me. But I very much, some of the stuff did elevate it, like the humor, like we were just talking about as well. I very much enjoyed that. And I found that, like, for the first couple episodes, I didn't really like Prince Graydon's character, but this one I felt very sympathetic for him, maybe because
yeah,
everybody's ragging on him. And so I felt like he got a little bit more time to shine in that character, at least the actor did. So I did appreciate that. I think we're going to get that as we go along here. More of these side characters are going to get more time in the sun, which is great. And so I enjoyed this one more than the first two episodes. So you gave it a 6 out of 10. I think I'll go ahead and give it a 7 out of 10. I thought it was
Feeling generous.
Yeah, pretty cool. I like Metallica, so there you go.
Yeah, well, and really, the songs sound great.
Mhm.
The artists and the
Yeah.
people that they are covering, all those songs are awesome. So nothing against the actual music. It's
No.
just very, I don't know, ill
Mm-hmm.
placed.
And my daughter has a rating for this.
Oh yeah,
9 out of 10. Oh, yeah, and I mentioned that too on the. So 9 out of 10
Ooh,
for my daughter, and she
as
said,
good as She-Hulk, huh?
yeah, well, her 10 out of 10 for She-Hulk, but 9 out of 10 because of the torches. You remember what I brought up earlier?
Yeah, out of the blue
so
torches.
docked it down there, Willow. So 9 out of 10 for her.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's our ratings for it. Do we have anything else we want to say before we depart these lands?
No, I don't think so. That's about all I got.
Whoa, you didn't watch it. Okay. 8.5 for my son, even though he didn't watch most of the episode.
As
You
one of
didn't
those
watch
212 reviewers on IMDb.
You were on my phone. No, this is the third episode. This was a new episode tonight. Okay. So okay, he knows what happened, so there we go.
Knows what happened, didn't see it, but still not impressed.
This is gonna be a fun edit on this episode. So yeah, so 6 out of 10 for Matt, and a 7 out of 10 for me, and a 9 out of 10 for my daughter. So let's. All right, brother. So thanks for joining us, guys. You can find us on the internet at YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Simply type in Fatherly Fandom. You'll find us there. And we also have a podcast version of the show now at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and basically anywhere you can find podcasts now. So you can find us simply by searching for Fatherly Fandom. So just type that in wherever you're at. You'll find us. And as always, guys, from our families to yours,
Have a good one.
adios.